The bright lights of the Manhattan studio cast a sterile glow across the glossy surface of the interview table. The floor manager gestured with a countdown, 5 fingers down to 1, and suddenly, America was watching. Mike Tyson sat across from veteran journalist Morgan Ellison, whose calm voice had guided generations through chaos, scandal, and war. Tonight, however, something was different. Tyson wasn't here to promote a fight, a documentary, or a book. He was here, he had said cryptically, because I need to speak from my soul. The cameras zoomed in slowly. Tyson's face, lined with age and experience, looked taut. His massive shoulders, once fearsome weapons in the ring, were slumped forward, as if crushed beneath invisible weight. Morgan leaned forward, voice low. "Mike, you said off-air that something changed for you last week. You received a letter. Can you tell us who it was from?" Tyson blinked slowly. He didn't speak at first. Instead, he reached into his breast pocket, removing a single, folded piece of paper frayed at the corners, smeared with what looked like fingerprints, maybe even sweat or blood. He unfolded it carefully, reverently. It was from President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, Tyson said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. A hush fell over the set. Even the crew, trained to keep silent and professional, turned slightly toward the soundstage. Tyson continued, eyes locked on the letter. "I met him only once, Dakar, 2022. Just a handshake and a few words. Didn't think he'd remember me, but this letter." Morgan leaned in. "Why now, Mike? Why is this so important?" Tyson's voice cracked. "Because he asked me not to forget him when the war begins." Morgan's eyes flickered. War? The letter trembled in Tyson's massive hands. "Not war the way we think, not tanks and bombs. This is a war of silence, of corruption, of betrayal, and he's trapped in the middle of it." Back in Ouagadougou, 5 days earlier, President Traoré had dictated that very letter under a candlelit room inside a bunker underneath the presidential compound. The electricity was down, sabotage, his intelligence chief claimed, and comms were being jammed. He paced the dusty concrete floor, surrounded by maps, scattered intelligence reports, and half-eaten meals. His eyes were tired, his uniform dusty, yet he spoke with urgency to Tyson. He said to his scribe, "Yes, that Tyson, he understands survival, but why him?" The aide asked. Traoré smiled faintly, "Because the world listens when the broken speak, and Mike Tyson is one of the few men who's been broken and stood back up." Back in the studio, Tyson continued reading the letter aloud. His voice cracked on every third word. "You once told me the ring was like a cage, but also the only place you could breathe. That stayed with me, Mike. Because for me, this presidency is the same. Every day I breathe in chains. They want me dead not because I did wrong, but because I refuse to lie. I refuse to sign over our land, our people, our gold. I refuse the contracts. I refuse the silence. I'm sending this to you because your voice, your presence, might do what armies cannot. Please, Mike, let the world see us." Tyson's shoulders shuddered, and to the shock of millions watching live across the world, a tear dropped down onto the letter. Then another. Morgan whispered, stunned, "Mike." But Tyson looked up and something had changed. His expression was not one of sadness anymore. It was steel. "America doesn't care about Africa unless it's oil or diamonds," he said coldly. "But this man, he cared about his people more than his life, and they're going to kill him for it, and no one's talking." Morgan faltered, but his journalistic instinct kicked in. "Who's they, Mike?" Tyson looked straight into the camera. "You know who, the same they who tried to break me when I was young, who profited off my blood, the ones who dress in suits and hide behind charities. It's the system, the World Bank, corporate executives, paramilitary contractors." A silence hung thick in the studio. Then Tyson whispered, almost inaudibly, "And some of your friends in Washington." Behind the scenes, producers were scrambling. A red light on the control panel blinked wildly. Network execs balked into headsets. Cut feed, delay broadcast, but Morgan signaled them to hold. This was bigger than ratings now. Tyson folded the letter slowly. "He begged me not to let him die unheard, so I'm here doing what I can. You wanted a celebrity story, right, here it is." Suddenly the feed cut to a commercial. "Too late. Clips of Tyson's raw breakdown and Traoré's haunting words were already being screened, captured, reposted, and translated worldwide. Within an hour, #TysonTraoré trended globally. In the streets of Ouagadougou, civilians holding cell phones saw their president's desperate words played on loop. Soldiers wept, ministers resigned, but not all were pleased. In Langley, Virginia, a CIA analyst named Jonah Rex tapped a code into his terminal, bringing up satellite feeds, encrypted transmissions, and a dossier titled Operation Nightjar. The subject, Ibrahim Traoré. Status, asset gone rogue. Updated, kill order reinstated. Meanwhile, in a quiet bar in Harlem, Tyson sat alone in the corner booth, staring down at his glass. A young man in military fatigues, African, mid-30s, approached and slid into the booth across from him. "You read the rest of the letter, brother?" he asked, voice low. Tyson shook his head. "I couldn't." The man reached into his own pocket, produced a small black drive, and pushed it across the table. "It's all here, names, plans, contracts, signatures. You're not just his voice now, Mike. You're the only one he trusted with the truth." Tyson stared at the drive, then back at the man. "And you? I'm already dead, brother," the soldier said with a sad smile. "I just haven't been buried yet." Tyson gripped the drive, his fingers trembled, and the moment he stood to leave, the screen behind the bar flickered breaking news. Burkina Faso President Ibrahim Traoré presumed dead in helicopter explosion. Investigation underway. U.S. offers condolences. Tyson dropped the glass, it shattered on the floor, and the war had begun. The streets of Ouagadougou burned with candlelight and fury. The air was thick with smoke, both from the scattered fires lit by protesters in grief and from the sudden, sharp presence of foreign boots. Flags waved, not just Burkina Faso's, but hand-painted banners with Tyson's face next to Traoré's. A symbol, now two men from different worlds tied by a letter that had become a battle cry. Mike Tyson stood at the window of a guarded flat in Accra, Ghana, watching international broadcasts flood the screen with coverage, unconfirmed reports, mysterious crash, sabotage not ruled out. Tyson's jaw clenched as the commentator discussed Traoré's controversial nationalism. As if fighting for your country made you controversial, a knock on the door, then another, short, sharp, coded. The door opened. The man who entered was dressed like a diplomat, but he wasn't one. He moved like a ghost and smelled faintly of gun oil. "You're a hard man to protect," said the man. "I didn't ask for protection." Tyson replied without looking. "Doesn't matter. After that broadcast, you're not a man anymore. You're a symbol. They kill symbols, especially ones that bleed on camera." Tyson turned slowly. "Who sent you?" The man tossed a folder onto the coffee table. "No one. I was with Traoré once, Mali, during the convoy ambush. He told me if he died I was to find you." "Why me?" Tyson said again, voice like gravel now. The man shrugged. "Because you got nothing left to lose, and he knew that makes you dangerous." Tyson opened the folder. Names, wire transfers, satellite photos. Correspondence between men in expensive suits and mercenary commanders. Every page screamed corruption, French conglomerates, U.S. contractors, IMF assets. The betrayal wasn't abstract anymore, it was printed in ink. A specific name stopped Tyson cold. He ran his finger under it twice. Senator Robert Hadley, Chair, Foreign Arms Oversight. Tyson growled. "That man hugged me at a gala 3 weeks ago." The agent nodded. That hug was insurance. Hadley's firm owns 16% of the cobalt extractions in Burkina Faso through ghost subsidiaries. Traoré tried to shut it down. He signed his death warrant. Tyson closed the folder. "Then we open it back up." But back in Washington, Robert Hadley was preparing his own press conference. His team huddled in silence as he reviewed the letter leak and the viral images of Tyson's breakdown. "This is dangerous," one aide muttered. "Tyson's not just famous, he's global, and Traoré, he's becoming a martyr." Hadley smirked. "He's a dead man. Martyrs can't sue." Another aide spoke up. "But we can't ignore it. The documents are leaking in chunks. Someone out there has the originals. If Tyson keeps pushing, then we bury him." Hadley interrupted, standing, "financially, legally, and if needed, literally." Just across the river in Arlington, CA analyst Jonah Rex watched Tyson's flight logs update in real time. He spoke into his comms. He's moving again. Accra to Berlin. Same burner jet. He's not working alone. Status of Op Nightjar. His superior asked through the channel. Green light. Phase 2 initiated. Target asset has become hostile influencer. Parameters adjusted for media suppression. Meanwhile, Tyson was already wheels up, seated beside two other figures, his old friend Jamil Dawkins, a former U.S. Army translator turned whistleblower, and Aminata Sow, a Burkina journalist who had been imprisoned under the prior regime for leaking colonial mining maps. Jamil rubbed his temples. "You know they'll hunt you now, Mike. This isn't a boxing match. There's no bell, just black bags and closed caskets." Tyson nodded. "I'm not fighting for me anymore. I'm fighting because I finally understand what my fists were really made for." Aminata looked up from her laptop. "We go to Berlin because a man named Kramer has the backup drive. He used to work for Traoré's intelligence unit. He's been hiding in Europe since the coup attempt last year. Can we trust him?" Tyson asked. "We don't have to," she said. "We just need what he has." The jet landed at a private hangar outside Berlin at 2:14 a.m. A storm raged. Rain slammed against the tarmac like gunfire. Their contact met them in a black SUV, no plates, tinted windows. Inside sat a gaunt man with a scar from cheek to jawline. "Kramer, I didn't think you'd come," he said, eyes flicking toward Tyson. "I didn't think I'd need to," Tyson replied. Kramer handed over a sealed envelope. Inside is the full communications dossier between the French Energy Commission and U.S. Special Resource Ops. It proves they funded the assassination. It names the man who gave the final go. "Who?" Tyson asked. Kramer looked him dead in the eye. "Your friend, Senator Hadley." Silence. "I thought you should hear it from someone with no reason to lie." Back in the U.S., the senator was being briefed on potential hearings being launched following public outcry from African diaspora communities, left-wing media, and protesters gathering outside embassies across 3 continents. "We can't control the narrative anymore, sir," a communications director said. Hadley tapped his fingers slowly. "Then we kill the messenger." Tyson and his team had moved again to a safe house buried under the concrete of a forgotten subway station. There, they pieced together the final part of the plan. Go public, live again, this time not with tears but with truth. Jamil paced. "You really ready to blow this open? The second you show this data on air, you sign your own death warrant." Tyson stared at the screen. The image of Ibrahim Traoré flickered next to a document titled "Confidential, Extraction Rights and Stabilization Fund Draft Agreement, Burkina Faso Restricted Access." "I already died 1,000 times in my life," Tyson said. "This time, maybe I come back for somebody else." They arranged the interview not in the U.S., but on Global Eye, an international investigative broadcast watched in 72 countries. The host, Nico Behrens, agreed to the exclusive after seeing the documents. "We go live in 90 seconds, a producer whispered. Tyson's hands rested on the table, no gloves, no letter this time, just a folder, closed, waiting, and as the countdown hit 0, he looked into the lens and began. "You saw me cry last week. You saw my soul rip open. What you didn't see was what came next." Then he opened the folder and placed each document one by one in front of the camera. Senator Hadley, watching from a secure war room, turned white. Tyson spoke names, spoke deals, spoke of a world carved into pieces by men in shadows. He ended with one sentence: "You might not care about Africa, but Africa remembers everything." That night, as Global Eye ended its broadcast, 10 million viewers had watched the full leak. 3 hours later, the jet Tyson arrived in exploded on a private runway in Brussels. The manifest showed Mike Tyson was aboard. News broke instantly. Mike Tyson dead after jet explosion in Brussels, possible retaliation feared. Across the world, vigils lit. #sword, governments stammered, but then at 3:21 a.m. GMT, a single post appeared on an unverified feed connected to a ghost account once linked to Jamil Dawkins. He wasn't on that plane. You think we'd play the same game twice?" Attached was a still photo Tyson walking through the crowds in Ouagadougou, hooded, alive. The war hadn't ended, it had just changed sides. The skies above Burkina Faso were silent, but the earth roared. Tyson stood in the middle of a vast crowd in Ouagadougou, the people around him chanting, fists raised, a thunderstorm of voices carrying one name, Traoré. There were no red carpets here, no gold-plated belts, just dust, hope, and rage, and beside him, cloaked in a black turban, stood Aminata Sow, clutching a radio rig connected to 4 independent global broadcasters. They were live but not televised, underground, pirate feeds, because the world screens now feared Mike Tyson. In Washington, the senator's offices were lit well past midnight. The CIA, Homeland Security, and several private consultancy paced behind the scenes. The explosion had failed. The footage of Tyson alive, surrounded by thousands, had gone viral. The hashtag #TysonRises was trending in every major capital city. Even the White House's press room was being mobbed for answers. "We have to act," said Hadley, voice sharp, brittle. His chief of staff, Mallory, tapped an encrypted tablet. "We traced the signal leak to a rogue satellite, origin, Nigerian telecom, but the source is moving, and fast." Hadley pressed a hand to his brow. "This is no longer about damage control. This is war." But war was exactly what Tyson and his makeshift alliance were trying to stop. Inside the makeshift headquarters, the old palace compound that Traoré once walked barefoot through with his staff, Tyson was meeting with a council of regional leaders, activists, rogue journalists, and tech heads who had come to pledge support after the live Global Eye feed. "We want peace," said Adama, a student leader from Bamako, "but they want silence. There's a difference." Tyson leaned over the cracked wooden table. "They think because I'm just a fighter, I'm easy to beat. They think tears are weakness, but when you cry in public and live, the people give you something back." Aminata slid a tablet across to him. "Here, it's from Kramer." He decoded more files. "Traoré didn't just write to you, he wrote to 50 other people." Tyson froze. "Who?" "Activists, scientists, athletes, politicians, celebrities, every single one with African heritage." His plan wasn't just symbolic. He believed all of you could become his army. Tyson sat back slowly. "Then maybe it's time I start calling them." By the next day, Tyson's inner circle had tripled. Remote video calls lit up every hour. Soccer stars from Lagos, rappers from Paris, a senator from South Africa, and a Brazilian academic who specialized in post-colonial wealth extraction. But even as the movement surged, a darker current twisted beneath. In the hills near Bobo Dioulasso, black drones buzzed through the air. They bore no flags, no insignias, but the fire they unleashed on rebel camps was unmistakable. Someone was striking preemptively, trying to collapse the backbone of Tyson's rise. Dozens of young men died in ambushes, camps torched, radios silenced, and worst of all, the traitor hadn't been caught. Inside a candle-lit room later that night, Tyson, Aminata, and Jamil reviewed satellite photos of the strike zones. Tyson's voice was barely above a whisper. "Somebody's feeding them our movements." Jamil nodded grimly. "We have a mole." Aminata stood. "Then we smoke them out." The trap was set, a fake convoy route, with Tyson supposedly traveling to meet a UN envoy near the Ghana border. They leaked the route to only 3 trusted individuals. Each told a different variation. When the drone strike came, it confirmed the leak came from the third contact, a man named Idris, a local logistics chief. Tyson found him the next day, tied to a chair in the back of a burned-out school. "You sold us for what?" Tyson asked, eyes like flint. Idris wept. "My family. They threatened my kids, my wife. They showed me pictures, said they'd skin them alive if I didn't." Tyson's hand slammed the desk. "I'm sorry," Idris sobbed. "They said they'd come for you too. They said the letter was never real, that it was a trap from the beginning, to draw you in, to destroy your name." Tyson froze. "What did you say?" Idris gasped between tears. "The letter from Traoré. They said it wasn't from him, that it was written by someone else, someone inside your country." The room fell into stunned silence. Jamil whispered, "No, that can't be." Aminata pulled out her tablet. "I've run authentication on that handwriting twice." Traoré wrote it. I even had one of his former aides, but Tyson's mind was racing. The footage, the way it hit the world so perfectly, the tears, the camera, the timing, all of it, orchestrated. What if someone forged the moment, he said, used me to spark a fire not for Traoré, but for something else. Back in Washington, Hadley was meeting someone he hadn't seen in 18 years, a man named Marcus Bale, a black intelligence operative turned disinformation architect, fired, blacklisted yet mysteriously back in the fold. And smiling, you used the man's pain like a baton, Hadley muttered. You used Tyson to start a revolution. But for who? Bale chuckled. I don't give a damn about Burkina Faso or Tyson or you. I just love watching the empire eat itself. And you, Bobby, you're the hungriest cannibal in the room. Hadley lunged. Bale didn't flinch. You want the truth. Bale said, eyes wild. The letter was real, but Traoré wrote two, one for Tyson and one for me. Mine said this, the only way to wake the world is to sacrifice the loudest voice. You were supposed to kill Tyson, the world was supposed to cry, instead you failed and now the voice won't stop. In the underground tunnels of Ouagadougou, Aminata finally unlocked the rest of Traoré's encrypted drive. Inside were videos. One by one, Tyson watched as Traoré spoke into the lens. This is my will, he said in one. Not to divide nations, but to remove the leeches, the puppets, the quiet colonizers who wear suits instead of chains. Another video showed Traoré reading a letter to Tyson, word for word, the same letter Tyson received. Aminata gasped, so it was real. Tyson said nothing, just stood, walked into the dark, alone. Later that night, the final broadcast was prepared. Tyson would speak again, not for vengeance, not even for truth, but for legacy. The last words of his speech were simple. I was used, I was broken, but I rose, because Traoré rose, because every man who dies for his people becomes every man who must live for them. As the speech ended, missiles fell near the broadcast zone. Dust, screams, chaos. Tyson vanished in the cloud, and when it cleared, all that remained was a glove, torn, burned, but beside it, freshly painted on the wall, was a message in red dust. I am not the voice, I am the echo, and you cannot silence an echo. As the silence in the studio wrapped around the tension like a noose, Mike Tyson sat still, trembling fingers clutching the armrest of the interview chair. The letter from Ibrahim Traoré, its words now etched into the consciousness of everyone who had watched the broadcast, lay unfolded before him. The producers signaled the cameras were still rolling, and Tyson, composed but visibly bruised by emotion, finally exhaled a shaky breath. I want to meet him, he said, voice gravelly, as if scraping against his soul. The room stirred. Nobody expected that, not after what had just unfolded on live television. Across the Atlantic, in the heart of Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré watched the broadcast with an expression carved in stone. Around him, his advisors exchanged concerned looks. One of them leaned forward. Sir, the Americans may interpret this as a political gambit. You risk silence. Traoré cut in, his voice as cold as steel. They saw a fighter become human. They saw pain turn into reflection. That is not a gambit, that is truth. He walked toward the window, the letter he wrote to Tyson reflected in the glass as if fate was mocking him. In it, he'd shared not just his admiration for Tyson's strength, but the deep disillusionment he'd faced watching his nation suffer while global powers played chess with African lives. He'd written of his father's death, an innocent man caught in a malicious crossfire funded by foreign interest. He wrote about watching Tyson fight in the 90s with a belief that strength could change destiny. You were never just a boxer, he wrote. You were proof that rage could be righteous. Tyson read that line aloud again. And again, the camera caught him weeping. Now, 3 days later, the world was no longer the same. The media spun theories. Was this a turning point in U.S. Africa diplomacy? Had Tyson been radicalized? Was Traoré manipulating Western icons for political gain? But the two men weren't thinking politics. They were thinking confrontation of soul, of history, of legacy. Tyson agreed to fly to Burkina Faso. His PR team, lawyers, and even representatives from the U.S. State Department warned him against it. But Tyson, now walking with the defiance of a man no longer shackled to his past image, replied with the quiet rage of someone who had found purpose. "I fought for belts. This time, I fight for truth." They met under strict security. The handshake between the Iron Mike and Traoré was like a collision of storms. Traoré in a sharply tailored military uniform and Tyson in an old brown leather jacket exchanged a long stare. Then Tyson laughed. "You don't smile much, do you?" Traoré answered flatly, "The smiles are a luxury." They sat across from each other, no press, no cameras. Just two men and a translator who barely had to speak, their eyes communicated far more. Traoré handed Tyson a worn photo of his father, bleeding, arms outstretched toward a child. "This is what strength means to me, to protect, not to destroy." Tyson looked at the image, his lip trembling. "And this is what the world ignored, until now." The meeting sparked outrage in Washington. Condemnations flowed. A former champion consorting with a controversial military leader. Calls for investigations. Political opportunists smelled blood, but Tyson didn't back down. He appeared on another live broadcast, this time from a studio in Dakar. "I didn't endorse a regime. I endorsed the pain of a people. I didn't cry because I was broken. I cried because I woke up." More letters followed. From Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa. From kids who'd grown up watching Tyson and leaders who now wondered what their next move should be. He had become a symbol not of power, but of reckoning. One night, a black sedan pulled up beside Tyson's hotel. A man in a suit stepped out. "Mr. Tyson, I have a message from the Pentagon." Tyson, unfazed, looked at him. "Tell them I don't fight in rings anymore, I fight in truth." Back in the States, things got worse. Protests erupted. Some saw Tyson as a traitor. Others hailed him as the conscience America tried to silence. But Tyson refused to return. He started touring African nations, listening to stories, speaking at youth forums. In Congo, a teenage boxer wept in his arms. In Nigeria, a mural of his tearful broadcast was painted on a school wall. In Sudan, a rebel soldier laid down his gun and said, "I want to feel what you felt that night." Tyson called his daughter and whispered, "Maybe I'm finally becoming a real fighter." But as momentum grew, danger followed. One evening, after speaking at a gathering in Mali, a bullet whizzed past his head. Panic erupted. His security detail tackled him to the ground. The sniper got away. Traoré called him that night. "Are you ready to go back, Mike?" "Hell no." Tyson said, "I'm just getting started." In a final public address from Ghana, Tyson stood under the harsh sun, facing thousands. He didn't wear sunglasses. His eyes, swollen and weathered, stared directly into the cameras. "If my tears shook the world, then let your voice finish what I started. No more silence, no more cages, be they of steel or skin." The crowd roared. Then he stepped back. Traoré walked to the mic. "You saw a boxer cry. You called it weakness, but it was prophecy. Now hear this, we will no longer whisper beneath the boots of empires. We will stand and we will roar." The world watched split. In Washington, a red phone rang. In Paris, a dossier was opened. In Burkina Faso, a child drew a picture of Tyson, arms stretched like wings, tears turning into fire. And in the final twist of fate, Mike Tyson, once the baddest man on the planet, walked alone into a village where foreign interests had turned families into rubble. He found a boy, barefoot, hungry, eyes hollow. Tyson knelt, handed him a piece of bread and whispered, "You're the reason I broke down." The boy looked up, confused, and then he smiled. The cameras were long gone, the war was not, but the fight had just begun.